Back in early 2013, someone had the bright idea of sticking a camera in David Rickerby's face and grilling him about his days collecting empties off the streets of Aarhus. The documentary aired on Danish television that May, and in the months that followed, this homeless Yorkshireman scraping a living from bottle deposits became something of a local celebrity. No sooner was he spotted writing in the corner of a cafe than a crowdfunding campaign to raise the funds for publishing his novel was up and running. Next, there was a radio interview followed by another short film. David's presentation to a packed audience, which included, and I shit you not, the mayor of the city himself, was certainly the high point of a campaign which raised a total of £4,000, give or take. With Bloody Fields set for a mid-March 2014 release, the author dared to dream that things might really be looking up. His good mood was not to last. Excuses degenerated into delays which petered out into eerie quiet. The publishing deadline came and went. He wouldn't have believed it if you told him, but David still had 8 months to wait, a further 8 months smiling through gritted teeth at the same goddamn questions. Come the end of November, injury was piled onto insult in the form of hundreds of books printed blindly from some old unedited draft. There wasn't an awful lot David could do now but attend the signing and smile for television. Sure, the funders got their copies and his novel would be available from a national bookstore, just not in anywhere near the state he'd paid for. There is, of course, more to the story, but it's not for me to tell. Nevertheless, Bloody Fields received a favourable review in the local paper, so its author struggled on coming up with new answers to those same goddamn questions. Later that year, David's vagabond rituals were featured as part of an anthropological installation at Aarhus's Moesgaard Museum. Television asked him back. The topic, however, was his homelessness rather than his writing. Meanwhile, help had been brought in, so by last Christmas there was not only the correct version of Bloody Fields available in paperback and ebook, but also the remaining 2 novels in the Northern Lights trilogy, each with its cover painted by an old Dutch friend who I'm sure we'll drop in on later. 2016 began well with David giving a talk on literature and masculinity at the University of Copenhagen, appearing in the magazine of the capital's literature festival and releasing Heltress, a collection of 50 poems to celebrate his 50th birthday. It was back in 2006 that I interviewed David about life on the streets of Denmark. 10 years later, he's off those streets and people are reading his books. He'd be the first to tell you that that's the start.
Well, it's not a 3-room apartment, but it shows how beats sleeping in a pavilion. Having the slight advantage of not freezing your ass off when you come home.
For the last couple of years, David has been a poverty walk guide, giving groups a glimpse of Aarhus's hidden side. His groups aren't usually as small as the one today, but then they generally aren't this intimate either.
Some people just don't like being in the mainstream. It doesn't work for them. So the homelessness isn't necessarily based on addiction or cultural issues. Sometimes it's just purely philosophical. They just look at the world and go, nah. There's always going to be some people who are just not going to fit. The only way that you will ever clear your streets and your culture of people like me is if you go German in the 1930s. That's why I don't identify with the word homeless. Because as soon as you mention that word, boom, you're condemned.
Yeah.
You're judged and you're condemned. All right? I'm a person that's homeless, not a homeless person comes first. I've now got a trilogy of books and a collection of poetry, all available on the internet. It's out there. You can't write a book on the streets unless you are focused, passionate and dedicated. Self-discipline is actually quite important, especially for people like me. I've had to keep myself focused and keep going, otherwise I would have ended up probably either back in England, worse off where I am, or back in jail. These were basically my educations. This is where I show my focus, my passion and my dedication.
You've made a lot of kind of successes out of in the face of adversity. Would you not think of going back to England for a trip to kind of face your demons, so to speak?
Yeah. I want to go back to the streets I used to walk. I want to go back to the jails that I did time in. Because I think that is going to be the final completion. I'm at a stage now where I'm comfortable enough in myself and who I am at the moment to know that I can go back, I can face it, and it's not going to drag me back, right? Journalists in an interview said, has anything like changed like in your thinking over the last few, while you've been doing this? I said, yeah. He said, people are not as big as assholes as I thought people were. And the thing is, I'm not as big an asshole as I thought I was. Sometimes that's the problem. You get it in your head that you're the bad guy, always the bad guy, that you're never you can't be the good guy. You got that in your head, the rest of it's pointless, right? You're screwed.
David works part-time as a cleaner, and I meet him early the next morning just as he's finishing up the office. Today's the day he gets the keys to his own.
Yay!
Yay!
Cool, so this is going to be the office. I'm going to need to clean it.
David wrote his Northern Lights trilogy in the Central Library, but that's since been closed down and replaced with a colossal new culture centre on the other side of town. We go pay our last respects to the old place.
Scene of my first writings, sitting in the archive section down in the basement, scribbling away in notebooks, pen and paper, doing it old school, getting all my heartfelt passion and stories out, trying to tell my tale, understand who I am. Turns out I was a bit of an arsehole, to be honest. Not a nice man. That's where it all began. My office for years. And now it's closed down. Atmosphere is actually quite important for me. I find certain environments a lot more conducive. The old library was an old library, wood and brass, and I kind of feel more relaxed in that. This is a lot cleaner, a lot sharper. Stainless steel, wide panes of glass. I just work in more intimate surroundings, I guess. This one's too open, too much noise, too many other people. That's why I'm moving into the office. I think I'll get a lot more work done. One of the reasons I stayed in Aarhus for so long, or being based here, is that I like the city. I think it's nice, it's comfortable. I know people here, my network's here, but I've also been kind of optimistic about it as well. I'm thinking, this city's got a lot of good stuff going on, and one day people are going to notice. Copenhagen's cool and everything, but it's also too expensive and not a terribly good representation of Danish culture. Aarhus is. And we're going to see a lot more of that next year when it becomes European City of Culture. And I think a lot of people are going to go, wow, never heard of this place. It's actually kind of cool. And so you can actually see that already. There's been a couple of newspaper articles about it in foreign media. And yeah, I think next year is going to be a really positive time for the city. And one of the things they're going to need is some excellent literature about the place, which is my job. So yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. It's a city in change. Then again, so am I. So we're growing together.
But we were done looking to the future for now. It was time to go back to the past, to the island, to Samsø. Bloody Fields is the tale of David's alter ego, Peter, robbing the island's 2 banks, but he seemed to forget this when we went back, reliving the job as if it had actually happened, but then we did drink an awful lot of wine that day.
I awoke in the toilet of a church. Taking seriously the Christian tradition of sanctuary, whoever kept the church in order and left the toilets unlocked, so I had shelter for the night, and thanks to the heater being on, I'd also been warm. Inadvertently, I have basically replicated the opening of the book. Though I must admit, I kind of hope for crashing on the beach, it'd be nice under the stars with a bottle of wine. I'm getting back in touch with my roots here.
I don't know, man. You go for 10 years, and when you get back, everything's gone. Every year, at the end of the season, we'd have a big party on the farm. And every year at the end of the season, I would go down to one of the strawberry fields about midnight. It's always midnight. And what I would do, you know, it's midnight, by this stage I was quite drunk. I would run naked around the field. Alstrup, Fruct Plantage, Ground Zero, where it all began, where it all happened. This is basically where I spent my churches. Every summer. And quite a few autumns as well, working on the apples. Benches out there, kitchen full of people, campsite at the back. Apples now, but strawberries over there and over there and over there. Yeah, I guess I must have spent cumulatively at least a couple of years living just in this one place. Damn. Most of what I am now, and pretty much most of who I know and all of what I've written has basically come out of what happened here. This island, this farm. A lot of ghosts. Mostly because there's a lot of bodies buried in the field. Right. They don't seem to be home, so I'm gonna leave a copy for them anyway. This is the windmill. This is where the characters Frank and Mike meet up to look over the island and think this will be an easy place to take. They were wrong.
På Samsø var en pige, så skøn. Hun sin egen Jørgen elskede i løn. Jamen pigen.
Beware your sins will find you out, and this is where my sins find me out. As Frank and Mike come across me at Dockham one evening when I'm with friends, where we finally meet for the first time in years and decide our futures together.
Det var en skam.
The Water Tower. This is where I got the band back together. The Robbery supergroup, where we shook hands and made plans. I distinctly remember it being bigger than this. This is the Calcone, where Peter and Hendrik meet to finalise the final details. Quiet, remote. Thanks from the island, it's a big place. There's a lot of shady nooks and little corners where people can meet discreetly. Remember, the whole book is basically trying to organise a robbery with a bunch of people who aren't actually supposed to be hanging out with each other. Nothing to see here, officer. Move along.
Jørgen drog så fide i den grumme krig, for sin mø at stride eller ligge.
Eating an ice cream up at underground ice in Norbu, the scene of my great diversion. Thing is, if you're planning a robbery, you kind of want the police not to be around. So the plan in the book is basically create a diversion at the furthest end of the island, which is Norbu. And also not only create a diversion, but give me an alibi. A lot of people knew that I'd done time for robbery in the past. Banks get robbed, they're going to go thinking, David, where were you? So I was like, hey dude, I was up in Norbu eating an ice cream. Alright, had dinner over there, came here, had an ice cream, and all of a sudden there was a big bang, smoke came billowing out of the garbage, and the police and the fire brigade turned up. And when they turned up, all of a sudden the alarm started ringing in Tranbere. But Tranbere's like 18 kilometres away. 3 cops from the island in the middle of summer. Tranbere's naked. Right? Bunch of guys rock up with shotguns. They're good. People were taking pictures of the fire. I talked to the waiter. I was in Norbu. I was fucking 18 kilometres away from the robbery, and nothing to do with me. Proved different. Innocence is not the absence of guilt, it's a lack of being able to prove guilt.
Her skal høre, hvordan brevet lød.
The heart of the island, the heart of the book, the heart of the story. Banks. That's what it was all about. That's what brought me here. And that's what I use when I was writing about here. Here we are, on the side of Jyske Bank. One of the main scenes in the book, where Frank and Henrik did their thing. While I was out, being Machiavelli, pulling the strings, organising it all, and trying to thwart the forces of law and order, which was quite easy because I had a friend on the force. One of the cutest police stations in the entire world, run by a part-timer, but you know. Not everything remains the same. This used to be a bank, VG, it's now a clothes shop. Chose it for the second job because it's on the way out of town, and once you pass here, you're out into the sticks really. Came down from there, cycle up to here, do the job and disappear out the back. Simple as that. No great sophistication required for a small town bank robbery. Point gun, get cash, get gone.
På Samsø var en pige, så skøn, så skøn. Hun sin egen hjørgen, elskede i løn.
People make a place, even somewhere as beautiful as Samsø. We'd brushed past our fair share of ghosts, but now it was time to visit an old friend, Mattijs, that Dutch painter I mentioned whose work was used for David's trilogy.
Apparently people are fairly superficial and they need a pretty cover for the book. You've got to have some kind of connection to the actual story.
Every painting is a disappointment.
Yeah, I dropped out of art school when I was about 22, and I moved to England and moved around in Europe until one summer I ended up on Samsø, which completely changed my life in different ways. I met the mother of my children, I met a lot of friends, and I met Dave. But we were not friends like right away. We met later. The streets of Aarhus. I had a studio there. We used to have coffees together and talk about art and poetry and life in general and drinking loads of coffee. It's this painting that did it. It inspired him. When Dave asked me to do a painting of his book, I was very happy to do it. You know, it was basically natural thing to do. I know Dave's story, I know his books, I know his background. We know each other for more than 10 years, maybe 15 years, I don't remember. And I painted this picture, and it kind of sums it all up. It's, when I met Dave and I first came to Samsø, probably we fell in love with the same kind of thing, these green hills, it's kind of innocent, you know, we kind of come from partly rotten societies, you know, where people live like rats, and you know, you come to Samsø and you see the farmers in their blue overalls, and you know, the whole thing is they're kind of innocent, the girls with their dresses, and you know, it's kind of a proper hideout, really, for a criminal. Like fresh green hills, which is really impressive when you first come to Denmark.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just like a thing Danes don't see anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing of it. You know, that's why they need us sometimes. It's just like to show them what they got, good and bad. You know, sometimes you don't appreciate the good stuff, and sometimes you don't see the bad. The thing about coming to Samsø was what in Alcoholics Anonymous they call a geographical. Basically, going to a different place, thinking everyone's going to be different, that you're going to be different.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen. You bring yourself with you.
You're bringing everything with you. You bring it into the new place.
You told me about the painting. I got an idea, and and I realized it didn't paint. And there's nothing much more to it. Kind of a blurry vision, and it's there. It can either be disappointing or it can be just hitting the nail.
Yeah, he's basically every dentical I ever knew pulled into an incredibly corrupt and homicidal police officer. You got the cow and calf rocks from Ilkenmore, which is where this is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Alright? You got the city in the distance. You can see that they're together, but there's no intimacy there. I mean, this is the third book in the trilogy. By this stage, the relationship has got some history behind it now.
Yeah.
They kind of worked out where they are together, and there's definitely a connection, a deep one, but it's not an intimate one. We ain't in West Jutland now. We ain't in Samsø now. We ain't in Aarhus now. We're in Leeds. That's my home. Happy ever after? Happy for who? That's me. It's a tough life being homeless, writer, in this city. Brutal, man, When I started this whole project, I was collecting bottles, living in a hut, not eating terribly well because I wasn't earning a great deal. But things have moved on. I made some films, I finished the trilogy, got some poetry out, I'm working on other stuff, I'm now working, I've got some cleaning jobs, I'm back in the system, I'm a taxpayer, I'm living in a caravan, I'm hanging out with people here, I've got projects and plans for the future. It's all good. It's all good, man. One of the projects I'm working on is I'm actually now going to form a company, and I've got an office. These are the things I've had to work my way up to. They don't come natural to me. They don't, that kind of blatant, egotistical self-publicity thing. Not really me, because I'm quite modest. I have to be modest. I have a lot to be modest about. So that's the next stage. Get the company going, get out there, get in touch with people. And, no guarantees, but, at least if it doesn't all work out, at least I can say I did try. Yeah, that whole kind of desperate homeless thing isn't really working for me anymore. Sometimes the day could do it, maybe lighten up a little,
So, that's your lot, folks. I'll leave you with a heartwarming montage of David with friends at a barbecue. As he said, he's starting a company. Also, my ex's mother has knocked out a bloody field script and is, I believe, punting it around Vancouver. I left David in as positive a state as I've ever seen. He's got work to do and schemes to juggle, but as far as I can tell, none of it involves pointing a shotgun at anyone. But then I've been wrong about him before.